Whole salvation, the whole thing that Jesus did, is talking in wedding symbolism and the whole Jewish tradition on how they did that. Just like the high priest that went into the Holy of Holies, they trust that all their sins were about to be atoned, made one again with God until the next year. And if he wasn't found blameless, then he was not alive anymore. Kind of sounds like a high pressure situation to me. So first, right, the man goes to the father and negotiates a bride price. And I know people hear that and they're like, oh, being paid for and all this. No, you don't get it, right? It's like a marriage proposal, like, ooh, look at my nails. Ew, sorry. You know, people might care, but I don't, clearly. No actual better bride price to pay for someone being perfect your whole life and then dying. Yeah, okay, but what does that mean? You know, what does any of that tell me, really?
Welcome to my channel where I'm tired of people being stupid.
Alright, so this is going to be a little bit of a different video than my last couple of videos, and I know that it's been a while, but a lot has happened, okay? My grandmother passed away, close to a month ago. Wait. No. Anyways, yeah, close to a month ago, right? So our family is trying to get everything together so they could bury her, right? But she got cremated. So they took her to get cremated, and they're going to have like the ceremony or something at a Catholic church in like 6 hours away from my parents' house, which is actually 12 hours away from my house. So it's going to be a long drive. But my uncle, he is Catholic, and he claims it's the one true church. I don't know. I've had my beliefs on that. Around 2020 is when I started searching out and having my exploration of what I believe in when all the churches were shut down and there was nowhere to go to. So I wanted to look it up for myself. And so with that, my husband, he was born and raised Catholic, and he comes from a Hispanic family, or he is Hispanic, and that's how he was raised with those things. And I was brought up like Baptist kind of, you know, or like non-Protestant or something like that. And there's different beliefs in those systems, right? So I had to search for myself and undo a lot of the forethought ways that things were explained or done to search it out for myself. And a lot of the things have been a lot of asking of why we do these things or why this was said. Why are things believed this way? And I've had to undo a lot of my old ways of being taught and how I was told to think, and you know what I thought I knew. And so it's still been an ongoing process of like deconstructing that, I guess, and building it back up and having God show me what the truth is. And in doing that, it's a long journey. And so a long submitting journey. And so this actually opened up a whole other research for me, because me and my sister-in-law will kind of go back and forth whenever I go to visit. And we talk a lot about, things that I don't understand in the Catholic Church. And she still can't give me like answers that are in the Bible, but they're like from the thing that's called the Catechism. And which, if you're Catholic, I'm pretty sure it is, you say that you hold the Bible and then the Catechism and then like what the church says, kind of like in 3 equal parts. I'm thinking that's correct. And so I just asked her things about, the Eucharist and all that, because I heard that at this burial celebration thing, I don't know, at the church that we're going to be having for my grandmother, that we're supposed to be taking like a mass in her name. And that just led me down a rabbit trail searching on ChatGPT, which I have my reservations about ChatGPT and dangers of it, but it's also useful in helping summarize several different things that are like tradition-wise that I didn't know. And so while this is not going to be a focus necessarily on the Catholic tradition and why they do things. I'm not here to discuss that. That might be in a different thing. But I want to discuss the things that I learned that is about Jesus, right? And about, if you keep hearing popping, I don't know, my house is clearly not finished. We're building it ourselves. But I don't know if it's birds up there or because it's getting warm, the wood is popping, creaking. I don't know. So anyway, looking up about Jesus, and if you really think about it, when you hear about, Jesus shed his blood for us, he died on the cross for us, yeah, okay, but what does that mean? What does any of that tell me, really? And at the Last Supper, why did he hold up the drink, and why did he break the bread and say, do this in remembrance of me? And also, I know the Catholic Church, they say it, they do it as not like a remembrance of me, but they have certain dates where they do, what's called the Eucharist, which is like the communion for everybody else that's not Catholic. They basically think that it's the actual body and the actual blood that is being transformed when they pray over it. And when you consume that, it makes you more holy. So doing that more often will make you holier more often and more often. I don't know if they really think that works. I mean, if you ask them, hey, do you feel better? How do you know it's actually working? Is it just a feeling? I don't know. I don't know any of that, but that's what supposedly happens. So anyways, but check this out. I am American, right? Raised in America, to where we don't do a lot of the traditional proposals, right? I was raised in an era where it was kind of being faded out, where the man would ask the father's permission to marry his daughter and ask for their blessing and such. That was being phased out, and it's kind of like no more where they really do that. It's not the common thing anymore. Excuse me, hang on. And so, looking back at Jewish tradition and not realizing that the whole language is speaking of that tradition that I didn't know about. And it makes everything make more sense, like way more sense now. So check it out, right? So I looked up, because I heard this before, about Jesus talking about like what he was doing was like a marriage proposal, right? Ooh, look at my nails. Ew, sorry. Avoid that. Like, whatever. Anyway, I don't care really, but people might care, but I don't, clearly. All right, so the Jewish tradition, right? Okay. The Jewish marriage proposal is one of the most beautiful and symbolic shadows of the covenant Jesus made, and it unlocks exactly what he was doing at the Last Supper. Let's walk through it, all right? It's not random symbolism. It's prophetic, intimate, and completely intentional. The traditional Jewish betrothal, I'm going to these words probably, Kiddushin. In ancient Jewish custom, the bridegroom travels to the bride's home and he offers a marriage contract, a ketubah. Probably say that one correct. A covenant. And he pours a cup of wine and offers it to the bride. If she drinks, she accepts the proposal. It's not just a drink, it's her yes to the covenant. So first, right, the man goes to the father and negotiates a bride price. And I know people hear that and they're like, oh, being paid for and all this. No, you don't get it, right? If she were to cheat on him, right, and he were to divorce her, where's she going to go? The money, the bride price, is for the family in case she has been divorced, to move back home, for her parents to take care of her again, to have it so she's not a burden on her family. And then also if her husband died, also then she would be back to be with her family and not a burden monetarily. So that's what the bride price is for, right? And it also shows that the guy worked his entire life, whatever his family might have, goats, sheep, land, all this stuff, right? And that they're giving this over like I'm giving you this much to show you that I'm definitely going to take care of this that you're going to give me. I'm showing that I'm going to take care of your daughter that's going to be married to me. Continuing on, this is what they did. They poured the wine, and then if she drank, then she accepted. So first her father has to accept, yes, you're acceptable for my daughter, and then it's her turn to accept. And then if she says yes, she drinks it, right? Kind of a strange proposal, I would think. I mean, random to me, sounds like. Exactly what happened when Jesus was holding up the wine and says, this is the new covenant, right? I'm getting deeper into that a little bit later. This is the new covenant, right? And do you accept? And if you accept, drink it, right? This is you saying, I accept your commitment to me, and I'm going to commit to you. And what she commits is making herself ready for the wedding and still committing in purity. Purity meaning I'm just focused on, I'm going to marry this man. I'm going to stay only for him. Everything I do is committed towards him because he's shown that he could do that for me up until now, right? Because he's given whole bride price and all this. So, and then after she accepts, the groom goes back to his father's house, right? And he builds on a room like upstairs or like beside or whatever, called the bride chambers. And Jesus said, whenever he's leaving, I go to prepare a place for you. I go to prepare a place for you. And that's exactly what he's doing for the bride. He's going to prepare a place for her for whenever they get married. Then they're going to come back and that's where they're going to live, right? He's not done building it until his father says he's done building it. Which again, when he says no one knows the day or the hour, only my father only, right? That's what he's talking about. In that tradition, the groom didn't know when he was done building. Only the father said, all right, that's enough. You're done. That's good. Whatever. It's crazy. Anyway, and he's like, I go to prepare a place for you. He leaves to build a room onto his father's house. She waits consecrated, set apart, and she doesn't know when he's coming back. Same thing. He doesn't know when he's coming back. He returns usually at midnight. Still again, I don't really know why. It could be during the day. Maybe that's also part of the surprise. So she can't see him coming. Maybe that's it. And then he snatches her up and takes her to the wedding. So she's made herself ready. She's probably got all her clothes packed, all her dresses packed. Same thing for all her bridesmaids, her families. They're all packed. They're ready to go to his house, his place, and all that for the wedding. Comes and snatches her up, right? Might not go to his house, but anyways, they go away from where she's at. And they have the wedding celebration. And remember when Jesus said that I will not drink from this cup of wine, something like that, until you are here with me in my Father's house, something like that. I think it's like the marriage feast, something like that. It makes so much more sense of the things that he said based on a marriage and a tradition that we didn't know here. I didn't know here. I've been to several churches and I've never heard it correlated like that, related to each other. That you heard the story and you knew what happened, but you didn't know why. And it's so much more beautiful when you learn why. I'm going to keep going. Okay. So how Jesus fulfills every step. Jewish custom, the bridegroom visits the bride. The parallel, Jesus comes to earth. That's John 1:14. Covenant and cup of wine, the Last Supper. This cup is the new covenant in my blood, Luke 22. The bride drinks the cup. We receive Jesus by faith, 1 Corinthians. Goes to prepare a place. I go to prepare a place for you, John 14. Bride waits pure. We are set apart holy, Ephesians 5. The midnight return with a shout. The bridegroom comes, second coming, Matthew 25 verses Thessalonians 4. The wedding celebration, the marriage supper of the Lamb, Revelation 19. So it wasn't just like a ritual, like how the Catholic Eucharist is, right? This is a proposal, and it's a remembrance of the proposal. That's what he's saying. He's saying, do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance that this is what I'm proposing to you. I'm going away, but this will happen. I will come and get you someday. And you know what's even more beautiful about this? Now, give me a second. Got to scroll down because I even looked up, did the rest of like the pagan world, would they have also kind of known that back then, like Greece and all that, ancient Egypt, Babylon, did they have similar traditions? Then they did. The only difference is that it was more about fertility and like drunkenness. Their marriage vows was like sometimes with several different people, where they mixed together their organs, anyways. All right, it's even in the Old Testament. I know that. When God makes a covenant with Israel on the Mount, and like doing the 10 Commandments, and Moses comes down and he says, this is what God wants to do. He wants to, propose to you, basically. He wants to take care of you. And then all the people agree, we will do whatever the Lord God says. We will do it all. And so then Moses goes back up, gets the 10 Commandments, and when he comes back down, they already are making an altar for Baal and with the gold calf, and they several times go away from God, and God calls them unfaithful, calls them an unfaithful bride several times. And I also was wondering if that's where the tabernacle came from, the whole thing of how it's supposed to be, the measurements, everything that's in it. And that led to research on that too. And everything is a foreshadowing of Jesus. And the whole reason for the tabernacle is so God could still be with the people somewhat. And so it's still a reflection of heaven too, and how things are ordered there. But they would travel with it and set it up, and then, the one person once a year would go into the Holy of Holies, and he had to be perfectly blameless, or else he wouldn't have made it out alive. They had to have a rope tied to his ankle in case he took on everyone's sin and was supposed to present it, to God in the Holy of Holies in the mercy seat or whatever, the Ark of the Covenant in there. And if he wasn't found blameless, then he was not alive anymore. Kind of sounds like a high pressure situation to me. So, Israel repeatedly broke the covenant. They worshipped other gods, idolatry, spiritual adultery. And he calls them unfaithful bride in Jeremiah 3. Even though God loved Israel very deeply, they broke the covenant. And then he says in Jeremiah 31, behold, the days are coming when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel, not like the one I made with their fathers. I will write my law on their hearts. And one thing, I don't know if I'll ever find this out. I wonder, he promises them a day that's going to come where it's going to change, right? But why? There has to be a time span set, it seems like. Couldn't God have just been like, all right, next week Jesus is coming? But it was years later, hundreds of years, I don't know, a couple thousand years, I think. And then the people, the Pharisees didn't notice, but whenever Jesus was coming in on the donkey and they were shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna, it's like they knew the time. Same thing with the wise men, right? They knew the times of the season that they were in, and that a Savior was supposed to come. I wonder how they knew that. I wonder really how they calculated it. I think it was like from the book of Daniel, maybe like the 70 times 7. I don't know if that's multiplied like years and all that. I don't know how they calculated it, but I just wonder. I wonder why God waited a certain amount of time instead of like next week, Like, why did he wait so many years? He probably set it up from the beginning of the world, but it's interesting. I don't know if anybody else really points that out. This is. I think Paul says it when they're talking about adultery in the New Testament, and if a woman, I don't know if it's a woman using this example or a man, where one of them divorces, right, and the one that is divorced, if someone else marries. Like, just say someone else marries that divorced woman, then the one that marries her is the adulterer, right? Is that correct? And that always confused me so much, because I couldn't understand why was the person that wasn't even in the original marriage, the adulterer. And he says that the law, the reason why Jesus had to die is because he had to, because the law was still alive until death. And that was the only reason in the New Testament too, where it shows that the woman is only free from the marriage if her husband dies, and then it's not considered adultery if she remarries. So she's broken, I guess that's death do us part type of contract, that we still say in vows today. That's the only way that you are not held accountable for, I guess, the marriage being broken or something. And so you're not held guilty. So remember, God made a covenant with Israel, made a promise, made a proposal. They got married spiritually and said that you will be God is going to be their husband, which husband just means like someone that watches over you, someone that guides you spiritually, the one that is your overseer for your best interest. That's what it means. And so she broke the covenant several times by, trusting in different random things. God says that they worship things that are made of carved wood, and they don't blink, they don't talk, they don't sleep, they don't do anything. They just sit there, right? And this is the things that they trust in to provide them whatever, things. Like Egypt, I know they had however many thousands of gods they worshipped for every different thing. And so they also began doing that again too. I wondered if God sent Jesus, because I don't understand that. God was the one that made a covenant with Israel. They broke it, right? And then Jesus comes and he says, I don't come to do away with the law. I come to fulfill it, because he has to fulfill it, because Israel wasn't able to fulfill it first. And she was the unfaithful one. So Jesus had to fulfill it and be perfect in everything that God said, okay, this is how I want my bride to be. This is how the bride needs to be. And so Jesus fulfilled everything that no one else could have fulfilled, right? Which was the terms of agreement. And he had to die in order to make that new marriage proposal active, to make it active. He fulfilled it. He had to die. And then now this is the new thing. This is, I've taken on all the punishment that was supposed to be on Israel and the broken promises that they did not hold, from God. And I'm going to bear that and pay the mohar, the bride price, for everyone. I'm going to pay that price myself, something that they couldn't do. I'll pay it. And that's the ultimate sacrifice. That's the ultimate bride price. Better than lambs, land, money, gold, any of that. Because his blood was his life. The life force is in the blood. And there's no actual, if you think about it, no actual better bride price to pay for someone than being perfect your whole life and then dying because someone else was imperfect, even one time. So he had to die, and then that made that new contract a new marriage, that's why whenever we believe in that and accept that, we drink the wine, we take the bread, when we accept the promise, the covenant, the proposal, the engagement, we are saying, I trust you to do all that. Just like the high priest that went into the Holy of Holies, everyone trusted that one man, that all their sins were about to be atoned, made one again with God until the next year. And so if he entered the Holy of Holies and didn't make it, I don't know what happened then, if he didn't survive. Would they have to wait a whole another year, to try again to have everything forgiven? So that one man had to be perfect to take on the sin of everyone else. But this is once for all for everyone, past, present, and future. And I remember that even like reading about Sheol, and Abraham's bosom. And one of the stories that Jesus was talking about the great abyss, the great chasm or something, between the rich man and, the poor man or something, the rich man, Lazarus or something. He was in a great chasm, and he wanted him to dip his finger in the water and just have one drop on his tongue, right? And that shows you that they could see each other, the wicked and then the righteous that were dead. The righteous, meaning like Moses and such. Then back there, that was counted on them in faith. They trusted God. Even though they failed a few times, they were still counted righteousness because they trusted, right? And when Jesus came, When Jesus came and he died, he was in the grave for 3 days, right? He went down to Sheol and he told them the good news also. So before, they couldn't be with God, like the first death. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. This just goes, I did research too into death. When I was reading in Genesis, right, it made no sense to me that God told them that if you eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die, right? Well, they didn't die that day. Or did they? People think of death as the only way people think of it, which is you're not in your body no more. That, you're in a casket and all that. That is a form of death. Death means separation. It means separation. So death meaning separation from your spirit and your body, or separation from God. When God says, my spirit cannot always be with man, right? And he kicks them out of the garden because he could not be with them anymore because they trusted in what Satan said more than what God said. God told them don't do that, which, by the way, interesting name for a tree, knowledge of good and evil, right? Who would know? Who would have the knowledge of good and then evil? Satan. Satan would know that, right? So he knew good because he was with God until wickedness was found in his heart. I think that was in Ezekiel or something like that. And so whenever he rebelled and he got proud and said, I'm going to make myself sit above the stars of God, and he wants worship, right? And then he got Adam and Eve to believe him. Whenever she ate from the tree, whatever fruit it was, whatever, before she even ate the fruit, in her mind, she had to decide, yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, that sounds more believable to me than what God said. And as soon as she did that, she believed in her heart and her mind, and then she did the action, right? She trusted more what the devil said than what God said. And so then she brought out to Adam, and she's like, eat, Adam, you don't have to listen to your daddy no more. And then he ate, and then, God punished Eve for listening to the serpent, but then he punished Adam for listening to the woman, right? And that still carries on all the way from then. So they had the death. They were out of the garden, and they were cut off spiritually from God. And so even when people were righteous, after that, when they started having babies, on and on and on, they were still in this fallen state. Or let's just say that they originally had 24 chromosomes, right? And then since they were kicked out, well, now they have 23 because that God piece puzzle is missing, right? So then all they can reproduce is 23 chromosomes. That's it. So it's like we're in the sin nature constantly. And that means even after we're separated from our bodies, we still can't be in front of God because it's still tainted, right? It was not what was originally created perfect anymore. So it could not be with God anymore. And so when Jesus came and he went down to Sheol, everyone that died righteously went to heaven right after that. Because when Jesus paid that price, all the debt was paid for all the way from the beginning. And that's why I said that from the beginning, middle, past, future, all this stuff. It's atoned for it. This one person did what Adam couldn't do. One man brought death and sin into the world. By another, it brought righteousness and life into the world, right? So that's what happened. And it's beautiful. It's about a marriage. It's about, hey, trust me. And I know several people are not married, and I know that it's gotten, oh my gosh, like who wants to be married now, right? Everyone is chaotic. Crybabies everywhere, single moms, single dads. There's not good examples of marriage anymore, so no one wants it. And everyone that thinks that the woman in the marriage needs to be like the man too. And that's exactly what happened with Eve. When she listened to the serpent, she knew his voice. And it carries on through women now. Women know the voice of evil. And that's why you could see all around you. Women don't love, right? Women have an idea of love. They can pretend for however long. Can you think about, just even one woman that has done this, where the man and a woman are no longer together, but they had children together. And she will use his children as a pawn because she can't control him. He left, and she can control him seeing the children. If it's not court ordered, if it's not, made for her, she will make it as hard as she can for him to get as least amount of time as possible with the kids and take the most amount of money from his wallet. And women are evil, and they will play a game as long as they have to control and manipulate to get what they want. And men, they will sacrifice everything that they have for their family. I even see men trying to figure out the woman, trying to cater to her, trying to understand her, try to please her, and to make things work. But you can't, because women see that as weakness. They see if they can control you, then they don't respect you anymore. And once they see that you will worship them, basically is what it is, they can manipulate you. They don't respect you anymore. They don't. And it sucks that we have this trait, because I have to catch myself on that. I can look back at myself and see that in my younger years, and even see that sometimes creeping up today, and I have to constantly check myself. Maybe that's what Paul was saying, basically study yourself to make sure that you're approved, right? To not let any kind of spiteful seed or whatever take hold. Don't let the devil get, crack in the door or something like that. It's hard. It's hard dealing with that and being aware of that and knowing that evil first worked through the woman to destroy the man. And that's exactly what happened with Adam and Eve, and that's exactly what happens on and on and on and on and on today. And so the man worships the woman by her body, her whatever, so great looking, I'll do whatever, and she knows that. She knows that. And she'll exploit it to her gain in whatever level that she wants. And it's not really even she wants, it's evil working through her to gain what it wants. So that's the basis of it. They're just using her. But anyway, and a husband is supposed to help calm that nature in her, and because he receives love from God, and it's the man that really has love and shows the love to the wife and to the children. And if you notice that with today, the fathers not being in the house for whatever reason, can't deal with their mother or whatever, the children do not get the love. They don't get to see the love of the father. And that's why you see grown men out here acting out, getting in trouble, being in prisons, because they never had that structure of to fear, but not like a bad fear, but fear and like respect and like grounding, because that's what dads bring. That's what men bring. And the girls that grow up without a dad, they don't know what to look for when they're grown. So they date all kinds of dudes that are not good for them. They date all the broken ones, the ones where they're constantly seeking, some sort of acceptance, and it just goes really deep. It goes really deep. And with that breakdown of the family And what it's supposed to be, you have the man catering to the woman, trying to be in the woman's life, trying to serve her, trying to serve her. And then you have the woman saying, I don't need a man. I can do it all myself, and I want his position. But the thing is you can't. You can't have that. And in the New Testament, it even talks about how the woman was deceived first. And that's why it's Christ and man over woman, and woman over children. And the man really needs to watch out that the woman doesn't ruin the children still. Like even disciplining, I feel like needs to be done by the father. And I know that sometimes like the fathers are not the best, you know, and that goes with like choosing wisely and all this. It still all trails back to their family and how they were raised. It's a whole big deal that I've just been noticing. Too much to say in one video for sure. Anyway, I've rambled on, and I just wanted to say that I've noticed a lot of this that maybe a lot of people don't notice about the traditions, just like how I didn't notice about the wedding tradition and everything that goes with it. It's just comes from questions of, I guess I've always asked why. I've never been just satisfied with, okay, here, do this thing, or we just do this thing. And then I'm like, that's random. This random organized things of words or of actions we go through, where did this come from? It's just a genuine question for me, and maybe it might be helpful for someone else too, with some questions, or maybe they can give me questions for some things I've never pieced together. It's a constant learning thing, and all I know is that we will not know everything, right? We won't know everything. But seeing patterns of things that are rebranded into, they have new names, but it's the same old skit, basically. The same old play, just a different name. It's interesting. And when you like to search out that stuff and try to figure out why things were done, or how's power in witchcraft, how does that work? And it works. It does work. But how did they get those rules for that power, you know? How were they able to operate that and twist it? It's just a whole bunch out there. And once you can start seeing how evil works, like working for the dark side, then you could see how it works under God. And that sometimes you're unaware that you're actually working for the opposite team, but you did not realize it because in your own mind you justified it. In your own mind you thought you were doing good, you know. And it's even scripture about that. And each one's own mind, they have their own standard of righteousness. But we've all fallen short, right? So, and even innocently we have fallen short. That we don't even know how much we're being used by evil to do their will. A lot of people say that they have free will. And what does that mean? You don't. You either do God's will or the devil's will. And there's no in between. Like, if you don't know you're doing the devil's will, you could still be doing the devil's will and you just don't know. Isn't that crazy? But yeah, that's all for today. And I think I like this setup more instead of outside because it's really hot now. It's getting really hot. And maybe you'll see progress. Maybe some paint on the walls soon. Maybe some paint off of these nails that really look like maybe I'm 10 years old. But if not, maybe my information will be good enough for you to stick around. That I might not have the best visual things, but this is me, and I don't always have people to talk to about this stuff. And maybe it could also be like my own diary type deal. But thank you for listening, whoever will listen, and have a good day. Bye.